The breaking point, the night sky cracked open with a brilliant flash of lightning, illuminating Sophia Reeves's exhausted face as she gripped the steering wheel of her ancient Honda. Rain lashed against the windshield, each drop another percussion in the symphony of her misfortune. 12 hours on her feet at Pinewood Hospice had left her body aching, but it was the weight of unpaid bills and looming eviction notices that truly crushed her spirit. "Just get home," she whispered to herself, squinting through the downpour. "Just make it home to Mia." Her 17-year-old sister would be waiting up despite Sophia's instructions to rest. Mia's autoimmune condition had flared again this week, but the specialist appointment Sophia had been saving for was still 2 paychecks away. The overtime shifts were supposed to close that gap, but then the pharmacy had called about Mia's prescription price increase. The car shuddered beneath her, the engine making a sound Sophia had been ignoring for weeks. This time, however, the sputtering grew violent before a final terminal wheeze. Steam began rising from the hood as the vehicle rolled to a stop on the rural stretch of road. 3 miles from their small apartment. No. She turned the key frantically, each attempt producing only a hollow clicking. "Not tonight, please." Sophia checked her phone. 11:43 p.m., 12% battery, and no rideshare drivers available in this remote area. The last bus had departed hours ago. Rain continued to drum against the roof as she leaned her forehead against the steering wheel, allowing herself 10 seconds of despair before straightening up. She'd have to walk. The thin jacket she wore over her scrubs offered minimal protection, but waiting for morning wasn't an option. Mia needed her medication before bed. Stepping out into the deluge felt like walking into a cold shower. Within moments, her dark hair was plastered to her face, her scrubs clinging uncomfortably to her skin. The country road stretched dark before her, illuminated only by occasional lightning. No streetlights here, just woodland on one side and fields on the other. Half a mile in, her worn nursing shoes had soaked through completely. Another mile, and her violent shivering made it difficult to walk straight. The rain showed no signs of relenting, and neither did the knot of worry in her chest. She'd texted Mia that she'd be late, but her sister would start panicking soon. Sophia didn't notice the headlights approaching from behind until they were nearly upon her. She stepped further to the roadside, keeping her head down as the vehicle slowed beside her. A sleek black Range Rover, out of place on these humble back roads, rolled to a stop. The passenger window lowered, revealing a man's face, partially shadowed. "You shouldn't be out in this storm," he called over the rain. "Do you need help?" Every warning about strangers flickered through Sophia's mind, but another bolt of lightning revealed more details. Sharp cheekbones, a neatly trimmed beard, and eyes that held concern rather than threat. Still, she hesitated. "I'm fine," she called back, wrapping her arms tighter around herself to control the shivering. "My car broke down. I'm just heading home." "That's at least 2 miles in this weather," he responded, his voice deep but gentle. "Please let me drive you. This storm is getting worse." As if to emphasize his point, thunder boomed overhead, making Sophia flinch. The cold had seeped into her bones and her legs trembled with exhaustion. "I don't know you," she said, her nursing instincts warring with desperate circumstances. The man reached into his pocket and extended a business card. "Darius Winters, Winters Architectural Design. You can take my photo, call someone, whatever makes you comfortable. But please don't stay in this rain." Sophia's vision blurred slightly as another wave of exhaustion hit her. The thought of Mia waiting, needing her medication, made the decision. She took the card with trembling fingers, snapped a quick photo of his license plate, and sent it to Mia with a brief text. As she reached for the door handle, she didn't realize how badly her legs were shaking until they nearly gave out beneath her. Darius moved quickly, stepping out into the rain himself to steady her. "I've got you," he said, and for the first time in years, Sophia allowed herself to lean on someone else. If only for a moment. Neither of them could have known that this stormy night would be the beginning of something neither had been looking for, but both desperately needed. The unexpected guardian, the interior of Darius Winters' Range Rover, was warm and smelled faintly of sandalwood. Sophia sat rigid in the passenger seat, water pooling beneath her as she shivered uncontrollably. She'd given him directions to her apartment complex in clipped sentences, then fallen silent, staring straight ahead through the rain-lashed windshield. "There's a blanket in the back seat," Darius said, his eyes fixed on the treacherous road. "And the heat is on full. Sophia hesitated before reaching back for the soft gray throw. Her pride warred with practicality as she wrapped it around her shoulders. "Thank you," she managed through chattering teeth. "I'll return it to you." Darius glanced at her briefly. In the dim glow of the dashboard lights, he could see the dark circles under her eyes, the tension in her jaw. Her scrubs identified her profession, but it was the bone-deep weariness in her posture that spoke volumes. "No need," he replied. "Consider it part of the roadside assistance package." A ghost of a smile touched Sophia's lips before disappearing. "I don't make a habit of accepting rides from strangers. And I don't make a habit of picking up pedestrians in thunderstorms," Darius countered. "But exceptions seem appropriate tonight." Lightning illuminated the landscape, briefly revealing Darius's profile to Sophia. He was older than she'd first thought, perhaps mid-30s with threads of silver at his temples. His clothes, a charcoal sweater and tailored pants, suggested money, as did the vehicle. What was someone like him doing on this forgotten stretch of road so late? As if reading her thoughts, he explained, "I was at the Westridge property, one of my projects. The storm delayed the site inspection." "You're an architect?" Sophia asked, remembering the business card now tucked in her pocket. "I design homes," he said simply, downplaying what Sophia suspected was considerable success. "And you're a nurse?" "At Pinewood Hospice," she confirmed, her voice softening. Despite her exhaustion, there was pride there. "We care for people in their final chapter." "That must be challenging work." "It's where I'm needed," she answered, the phrase clearly a personal mantra. They turned into Riverstone Apartments, a modest complex that had seen better days. Sophia directed him to Building C, her mind already racing ahead to Mia, to the medication she needed to administer, to the explanation she'd need to give about the car. "This is me," she said as they pulled up to the weather-worn building. "Thank you for the ride." Her voice caught as she realized the full weight of his kindness. Without him, she might still be miles away, trenched and desperate. "You're welcome, Sophia." He'd caught her name from a text notification that had lit up her phone earlier. She gathered her bag and reached for the door handle, then paused. "I should pay you for the gas, at least." Darius shook his head firmly. "Not necessary. I insist on doing something. I don't like owing people." There was a history behind those words, a story of hard lessons learned. He studied her for a moment, appreciating her dignity, even in difficult circumstances. "Your car. What happened to it exactly?" "Something with the engine. It's been making noises for weeks, but—" She trailed off, not needing to explain the financial calculations that had delayed repairs. "I know a mechanic who owes me a favor," Darius said casually. "If you give me the location, I could have him take a look." Suspicion flared in Sophia's eyes. "Why would you do that?" Darius considered his answer carefully. The truth was, he wasn't entirely sure himself. Something about her determination in the face of obvious struggle had resonated with him. "Let's just say I've been where you are. Not exactly, but I know what it's like when no one stops to help." Their eyes met, and for a moment the barrier between strangers thinned. Then a light flicked on in a ground-floor apartment, and Sophia's attention snapped toward it. "That's my sister," she said, suddenly urgent. "She needs her medication. I should go." "Of course." Darius pulled out another business card and a pen, scribbling his personal number on the back. "For the car details, if you decide to accept the help." Sophia took the card hesitantly. "I should warn you that I probably can't afford your mechanic favor or not. Let me worry about that part." His tone was gentle but firm. "Sometimes accepting help isn't weakness, Sophia. Sometimes it's just human." The door to the apartment opened, revealing a slender teenage girl with Sophia's same dark hair, wrapped in a blanket. Relief and concern mingled on her face as she spotted her sister. "I have to go," Sophia said, clutching the card. "Thank you again, Mr. Winters." "Darius," he corrected her. "And you're welcome, Sophia." As she hurried through the rain toward the apartment, Darius watched until she was safely inside. Something about the determined set of her shoulders as she carried the weight of responsibility stirred memories. Of his own past, of struggles overcome and others that still haunted him. He sat in his idling vehicle longer than necessary, staring at the now closed apartment door. Without fully understanding why, Darius knew with certainty that his involvement in Sophia Reeves's life wasn't going to end with this rainy night rescue. Silent benefactor. 2 weeks after the stormy night rescue, Darius stood in the shadows of Pinewood Hospice's east corridor, watching Sophia through the open door of rooms here. 14. Her gentle hands adjusted an elderly woman's pillows, while she spoke in soft tones that carried just enough for him to catch fragments about grandchildren and recipes. The patient's withered hand gripped Sophia's wrist with surprising strength, and the nurse leaned closer, giving her complete attention despite the clipboard tucked under her arm indicating other duties awaited. This was the third time Darius had come to Pinewood, under the guise of community outreach, each visit revealing more about the woman who had unwittingly taken residence in his thoughts. Mr. Winters, the administrative director, Patricia Thornton, approached with a clipboard. I have those donation forms you requested. Darius nodded, accepting the paperwork. His substantial donation to the hospice's Patient Comfort Fund had opened doors, allowing him glimpses into Sophia's world while maintaining his distance. The mechanic he'd sent to retrieve and repair her Honda had reported back. The engine needed complete replacement, well beyond economical repair. Ms. Thornton, he began carefully, I understand one of your nurses has transportation difficulties. Sophia Reeves? The director's eyebrows rose. Yes, poor thing. Her car finally gave out completely. She's been taking the bus, which means leaving home at 5 a.m. for her 7 a.m. shift. She lowered her voice. Between us, I worry about her. Single guardian to her sister. Works endless overtime, never complains. The kind who gives everything until there's nothing left. Darius watched as Sophia emerged from the room, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear before consulting her clipboard. Even from this distance, he could see the shadows beneath her eyes had deepened. Your employee assistance program, he said, an idea forming. Does it cover transportation? 3 days later, Sophia stared in disbelief at the letter in her hands. The hospice's employee assistance program had selected her for their new transportation initiative, a reliable used car, a silver Toyota Camry with low mileage, would be provided for her use as long as she remained employed at Pinewood. Insurance and maintenance included. This has to be a mistake, she told her supervisor, Helen. Helen shook her head, smiling. No mistake. The program is funded by a new donor. You were selected based on need and service record. She pressed the keys into Sophia's palm. It's in the west lot. Go see it before your shift ends. Tears threatened as Sophia walked through the automatic doors to find the silver Camry waiting. She circled it twice, running her fingers along its unblemished surface, before sliding into the driver's seat. The interior smelled new and the tank was full. A small envelope rested on the passenger seat containing a gas card and a brief note. For those who care for others, someone should care for you. The handwriting tickled something in her memory, but she dismissed it. This kind of miracle didn't happen to people like her. Yet here it was. That evening, Sophia drove home in stunned silence, her mind racing with calculations of how much this would change. No more 5 a.m. wake-ups for the bus, no more rain-soaked walks from the stop, an extra hour of sleep, the ability to get Mia to appointments without begging for rides. When she pulled up to their apartment, Mia was waiting outside, her thin frame bundled against the autumn chill. Her sister's eyes widened at the sight of the car. Whose is that? Mia called, approaching cautiously. Apparently mine, at least while I work at Pinewood. Sophia explained the program as Mia explored the vehicle, running her hands over the seats with wonder. This is incredible, Mia said, her usual teenage cynicism replaced by genuine awe. Things like this don't just happen, Soph. Sometimes they do, Sophia replied, but uncertainty lingered. Years of hard knocks had taught her that unexpected gifts often carried hidden costs. Her suspicions deepened a week later, when their landlord, Mr. Jenkins, informed her that an anonymous benefactor had paid 6 months of their rent in advance. When she pressed for details, he shrugged, saying only that the payment came through a lawyer who insisted on confidentiality. That same week, Mia's specialist called to reschedule her appointment, mentioning that her treatment had been approved by insurance, treatment they had previously denied 3 times. The hospital's financial assistance program had suddenly determined they qualified for comprehensive coverage. Something isn't right, Sophia confided to her colleague, Elena, during their lunch break. All these coincidences. It feels like someone's interfering in my life. Elena's eyes widened. You think it's that architect guy? The one who gave you a ride? Sophia had mentioned Darius only once, downplaying their encounter. Now his business card burned in her wallet where she'd kept it, unable to bring herself to throw it away despite never calling the number on the back. "I don't know," she admitted, "but who else would do this?" "Maybe you have a fairy godmother," Elena suggested, only half joking. "Or maybe someone just thinks you deserve a break." But Sophia couldn't shake the feeling of invisible hands rearranging her life. While grateful for the relief, the loss of control unsettled her. She had survived by relying solely on herself, and unexpected charity, however welcome, threatened that carefully constructed independence. Across town, in his minimalist penthouse office, Darius reviewed architectural plans for his latest project, a community center in an underserved neighborhood. His phone buzzed with a text from his lawyer confirming that the insurance approval for Mia Reeves's treatment had been successfully expedited through his foundation's healthcare initiative. He set down his pencil, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Somewhere out there, Sophia was caring for the dying with the same compassion she showed her sister, unaware that her silent benefactor watched over them both from a distance. Darius hadn't intended for his assistance to become so comprehensive. What began as a simple car repair had evolved into something more as he learned about their struggles. Each solution he provided, the car, the rent, the medical coverage, was carefully structured to appear as institutional support rather than personal charity, preserving Sophia's dignity while easing her burdens. He told himself his actions were simple human decency, not the desperate reaching of a lonely man who recognized in Sophia's fierce independence a mirror of his own isolation. But deeper truths lurked beneath his rationalizations, truths about connection, about the walls he'd built after his own family's betrayal, about the strange comfort he found in helping someone who reminded him of who he used to be before success hardened him. His assistant interrupted his thoughts, reminding him of the evening's business dinner with potential investors. Darius nodded, turning from the window to prepare. He would play his part as the successful, detached architect, all while wondering if Sophia had driven the silver Camry to work today, if Mia's health was improving, if they'd enjoyed the apartment without the shadow of eviction looming. What he didn't know was that Sophia had begun her own investigation, determined to uncover who was pulling the strings of her suddenly charmed life, and that the delicate balance of his anonymous benevolence was about to shatter completely. Shattered trust, the charity gala at the Westbrook Hotel gleamed with wealth and influence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light over designer gowns and bespoke suits, while champagne flowed freely among Hartford's elite. Darius moved through the crowd with practiced ease, exchanging pleasantries while maintaining the careful distance he'd perfected over years in these circles. Darius Darling, Victoria Lancaster, his former fiancée's mother and prominent board member of the Hartford Medical Foundation, air-kissed his cheeks. The Pinewood Hospice renovation plans are simply inspired. The board voted unanimously to fund the project. "I'm glad to hear it," he replied, accepting a flute of champagne from a passing server. "The patients deserve a space that offers dignity in their final days." "Always so serious," Victoria teased, lowering her voice. "Though I must say there are whispers about your particular interest in that facility. Something about a nurse?" Darius stiffened imperceptibly. "I have professional interests in many community projects." "Of course," Victoria smiled, diamond earrings catching the light as she tilted her head. "Though Rebecca mentioned seeing you there 3 times last month. Not exactly on your usual social circuit, is it?" Before he could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew attention. The crowd parted slightly to reveal Sophia Reeves, strikingly out of place in simple black pants and a blue blouse rather than formal attire. Her eyes scanned the room with determination until they locked on Darius. "Excuse me," he murmured to Victoria, moving toward Sophia before she could create a scene. Her presence here, at an invitation-only event for donors who contributed minimum 6-figure amounts, meant she'd gone to considerable lengths to find him. "Sophia," he said quietly when he reached her, aware of curious glances from nearby guests. "This is unexpected." Her eyes, usually warm, had hardened to flint. "We need to talk. Now." He guided her toward a quieter alcove off the main ballroom, hyper-aware of the whispers trailing behind them. Sophia's body language radiated tension, her hands clenched at her sides. "How did you get in?" he asked once they had relative privacy. I told security I was delivering something urgent to Darius Winters, she replied, her voice tight. Seems your name opens doors around here. What's happened? Is Mia— Don't, she cut him off. Don't pretend you're concerned about my sister when you've been manipulating our lives for weeks. Darius maintained his composure, though something in his chest constricted. I'm not sure what you mean. The car from the employee assistance program? The rent mysteriously paid 6 months in advance? Mia's treatment suddenly approved after being denied 3 times? She pulled a folded paper from her bag, thrusting it toward him. And this. It was a donation receipt from Pinewood Hospice, acknowledging the Winters Foundation's substantial contribution, earmarked for facility improvements and employee programs. I did some research, Sophia continued, her voice trembling slightly. The Winters Foundation has suddenly taken great interest in Pinewood, and our landlord finally admitted the rent payment came through Winters Property Management. It was you. All of it. Darius didn't deny it. I wanted to help. Help? She laughed bitterly. You invaded my privacy. You made decisions about my life without my knowledge or consent. Was it amusing to watch me struggle while you played God from a distance? That wasn't my intention, he said, maintaining his low tone despite her rising one. I saw someone working herself to exhaustion, caring for everyone but herself. I had the means to make things easier. So this was charity? Poor little nurse and her sick sister, what a perfect project for a bored rich man. The hurt beneath her anger was palpable. No. Darius stepped closer, lowering his voice further. It wasn't charity, Sophia. It was— He hesitated, struggling to articulate feelings he barely understood himself. Mr. Winters. A cold, authoritative voice interrupted them. Julian Winters, Darius's father and chairman of Winters Enterprises, stood at the entrance to their alcove, his expression glacial. A word. Sophia glanced between them, noting the identical steel-gray eyes and aristocratic features, though the elder Winters were hardened by decades of wielding power. Now is not the time. Father, Darius said, not taking his eyes from Sophia. On the contrary, Julian replied, stepping closer to assess Sophia with a dismissive glance. Ms. Reeves, isn't it? I understand you've been the recipient of my son's generosity. Perhaps you could excuse us for a moment. Sophia straightened, meeting the older man's gaze directly. I was just leaving. She turned back to Darius, disappointment etched in every line of her face. Don't contact me again. Whatever game you were playing, it's over. She walked away, her back rigid with dignity despite the curious stares from the glittering crowd. Darius moved to follow, but his father's hand clamped around his arm with surprising strength. Have you lost your mind? Julian hissed once Sophia was out of earshot. First the donations to that hospice, now this public spectacle with an employee. The Harrington merger negotiations are in final stages. Their family has values, Darius. Values? Darius repeated, a dangerous edge to his voice. Like using people as pawns? Discarding them when they're no longer useful? Don't be dramatic, his father scoffed. Your philanthropic impulses are commendable, when directed appropriately. But this fixation on a nurse? It's beneath you and it threatens everything we've built. Everything you've built, Darius corrected, on the backs of people like Sophia, who do the real work in this world. Julian's expression hardened. I've indulged your rebellious phase for years. The community projects, the affordable housing designs, fine. Good PR. But this crosses a line. The board meeting is Monday. The Harringtons expect a united front on the merger. I expect you to be there, focused and committed. Whatever this— He gestured toward where Sophia had disappeared. Distraction is— end it. As his father walked away, Darius remained in the alcove, the weight of decades of expectations pressing down on him. The empire his grandfather had built, that his father had expanded through often ruthless means, awaited his stewardship. The path had been predetermined since birth. Winters men led, acquired, conquered. They did not fall for hospice nurses with fierce eyes and fiercer principles. Across town, Sophia stumbled into her apartment, kicking off her shoes with unnecessary force. Mia looked up from her textbooks, alarm crossing her face at her sister's expression. What happened? She asked, setting aside her physics homework. Nothing, Sophia snapped, then immediately softened. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Whose fault is it? Mia persisted, following Sophia to the kitchen where she aggressively filled a glass with water. Sophia sighed, leaning against the counter. Remember that architect who gave me a ride during the storm? Turns out he's been playing fairy godmother. The car, the rent, your treatment approval, all him, pulling strings behind the scenes. Mia's eyes widened. But why would he do that? I don't know, Sophia admitted, the fight draining from her. Maybe he gets some kind of satisfaction from controlling other people's lives. Maybe it's guilt. Rich people are weird about their guilt. Or maybe he likes you, Mia suggested quietly. Sophia scoffed. Men like Darius Winters don't like women like me, Mia. We're from different worlds. You should have seen that gala. Those people spend more on champagne in one night than we make in months. So what happens now? With the car and everything? The question hung heavy between them. The practical reality was that Sophia couldn't afford to reject the assistance no matter how much her pride demanded it. I don't know, she admitted, her voice small. I just know I can't be part of whatever game he's playing. Later that night, as Mia slept, Sophia sat by their apartment window, staring at the silver Camry in the parking lot. Tomorrow she would need to drive it to work. She would walk the halls of a hospice being renovated with Winter's money. Her sister would continue treatment approved through Winter's influence. The realization that she couldn't extricate herself from his help without harming Mia felt like another form of betrayal. Yet beneath her anger lay a more uncomfortable truth. In the brief moments she'd spent with Darius, she'd glimpsed something genuine beneath his controlled exterior. Something wounded that recognized the same in her. Across town, in his penthouse overlooking the city lights, Darius made a decision that would upend the carefully constructed life his family had planned. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to acknowledge what he truly wanted. Not the empire, not the legacy, but the chance to be seen for himself by a woman brave enough to confront him in a room full of power and privilege. He reached for his phone just as it began to ring. Mia Reeves's name flashing on the screen with a text that stopped his heart. Emergency. Sophia collapsed. Hartford General. Please come. Weathering the storm together. The antiseptic smell of Hartford General's emergency department burned Darius's nostrils as he strode through the automatic doors. His usual composed demeanor had fractured, tie loosened, hair disheveled from running anxious fingers through it during the frantic drive. The text from Mia had contained no details beyond Sophia's collapse, leaving his imagination to conjure increasingly dire scenarios. At the information desk, a harried receptionist directed him to the third floor. The elevator seemed to crawl between floors, each second stretching into eternity. When the doors finally opened, he spotted Mia immediately. A small figure hunched in an uncomfortable waiting room chair, arms wrapped protectively around herself. Mia, he called, crossing the space in long strides. She looked up, relief washing over her pale face. Despite their never having met in person, she recognized him instantly. You came. Of course I came. What happened? Where is she? Mia gestured toward the treatment area behind closed doors. Exhaustion, dehydration, and pneumonia, they think. She's been coughing for weeks but wouldn't see a doctor. Her voice cracked. She worked a double shift yesterday, then stayed up all night after finding you at that gala. This morning she couldn't stop coughing, then just collapsed in the kitchen. Guilt pierced Darius like a physical pain. If he'd been honest from the beginning, if he hadn't hidden behind anonymous gestures. The doctor said she'll recover, but she needs rest. Actual rest, not Sophia-style rest where she's folding laundry from a hospital bed. Mia looked at him directly, her eyes, so like her sister's, sharp with assessment. Why did you help us? The question, stripped of Sophia's anger and hurt, demanded honesty. Darius sank into the chair beside her, suddenly aware of the weight he'd carried for years. When I was 12, he began slowly. My mother left. Not just my father, she left me too. Said she couldn't breathe in our world anymore. He stared at his hands. She had been the only softness in my life. After that, there was only my father's ambition and the family legacy. Mia listened silently as he continued. The night I found Sophia in that storm, something about her reminded me of my mother. Not in abandonment, but in suffocation. Someone drowning under expectations and responsibilities with no one reaching out a hand. He looked up, meeting Mia's gaze. I didn't plan what came after. One thing led to another. The car, the rent, your treatment. I told myself I was just helping, but maybe I was trying to save someone the way I couldn't save my mother. By controlling everything from a distance? Mia asked, her tone gentle despite the challenging words. Darius winced. I didn't want her to feel indebted or pitied. I thought anonymous help would preserve her dignity. But you took away her choice, Mia pointed out. Sophia's whole life has been about making impossible choices and bearing the consequences. When you decided what she needed without asking, you became just another person who didn't trust her to make her own decisions. The wisdom from the teenager struck him with unexpected force. Before he could respond, a doctor emerged from the treatment area. Family of Sophia Reeves? Mia stood quickly. I'm her sister. The doctor glanced at Darius questioningly. Mia hesitated, then finished firmly. He's family too. Something warm and unexpected bloomed in Darius's chest at the simple declaration. Ms. Reeves has bacterial pneumonia, exacerbated by exhaustion and chronic stress, the doctor explained. We've started antibiotics and fluids. She's stable but weak. We'd like to keep her overnight for observation. Can we see her? Mia asked briefly. She needs rest. They followed the doctor through swinging doors to a curtained area where Sophia lay connected to an IV. Her normally vibrant presence diminished against the white hospital sheets. Her eyes were closed, dark lashes stark against too pale skin. Mia approached first, taking her sister's hand gently. Hey, Soph. Sophia's eyes fluttered open, focusing with effort. Mia, you should be at school. It's Saturday, Mia corrected gently. And you're in the hospital, so school isn't exactly my priority right now. Sophia's gaze shifted past her sister, widening slightly when she spotted Darius hovering uncertainly at the foot of the bed. What is he doing here? I texted him, Mia admitted. I was scared and I thought he should know. Sophia closed her eyes briefly, too exhausted to sustain anger. You shouldn't have. Actually, I think I should have done it a long time ago, Mia replied with surprising firmness. You two need to talk, really talk. Not yell in fancy hotel alcoves or hide behind anonymous gifts. She squeezed her sister's hand, then stepped back. I'm going to find some terrible hospital coffee. Take 20 minutes to sort this out, because I'm not spending another day watching you both be miserable and stubborn. With that declaration, she slipped out, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. Darius approached the bed cautiously. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, Sophia admitted, her usual defenses weakened by illness and exhaustion. Why are you here, Darius? The game is over. You've been exposed. No more anonymous benefactor mystery. It was never a game. He pulled a chair close to her bed, sitting so they were at eye level. But I did wrong by you and I'm sorry. The simple, direct apology surprised her. What exactly are you sorry for? For not respecting your agency? For making decisions about your life without consulting you? For thinking I knew what was best? He met her gaze steadily. But I'm not sorry for wanting to help. I'm not sorry for caring. Something in his voice, a vulnerability she hadn't heard before, made Sophia really look at him. Beyond the expensive clothes and polished exterior, she saw fatigue etched around his eyes, tension in his shoulders. Mia says you stayed with her for hours, she said quietly. She's remarkable, like her sister. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She gave me quite the lecture about respecting your independence. Despite herself, Sophia felt a smile tug at her own mouth. She's been practicing those lectures on me for years. The moment of shared amusement created a small opening, a crack in the wall between them. I spoke with my father last night, Darius said after a pause. I've stepped down from Winter's Enterprises. Sophia's eyes widened. What? Why would you do that? Because I don't want to be part of a system that values profit over people. Because I'm tired of living according to expectations that were never mine. His gaze held hers, and because a remarkable woman showed me that integrity matters more than influence. That sounds like an impulsive decision made during an emotional crisis, Sophia observed. Her nurse's practicality asserting itself even from a hospital bed. Darius laughed, the sound warm and genuine. It wasn't impulsive. It was just the final step in a journey that started the night I found you in the rain. He leaned forward slightly. I'm keeping my architectural practice. In fact, I've accepted a position as lead designer for the Community Healthcare Initiative, focusing on facilities in underserved areas. A significant career change, she noted, studying him with new interest. A return to what I originally wanted architecture to be, creating spaces that serve people, not just monuments to wealth. He hesitated, then added softly, I'd like to start over, Sophia. No secrets, no power imbalance, just two people getting to know each other properly. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, her analytical mind working through the implications despite her physical exhaustion. The car, the rent, Mia's treatment, those things have made a real difference. I can't pretend they haven't. Those things are done, Darius assured her. No strings attached, regardless of what happens between us. But going forward, I promise, no more interventions without conversation. Partners consult each other. Partners? She echoed, eyebrow raised despite her weakness. Aspirational terminology, he admitted with a small smile, but I'd like the chance to earn that word. Before she could respond, a nurse entered to check Sophia's vitals, followed closely by Mia, who assessed the atmosphere with keen eyes. So? She prompted, looking between them. Did you two figure it out, or do I need to lock you in a room together once Sophia's not attached to an IV? Sophia reached for her sister's hand, then, after a moment's hesitation, extended her other hand to Darius. He took it gently, his larger hand enveloping her slender fingers. We've agreed to try something revolutionary, Sophia said, her voice tired but warm. Honest communication. Groundbreaking, Mia deadpanned, but her relief was evident. As afternoon stretched into evening, Darius remained by Sophia's side. They talked, really talked, about childhoods shaped by absence, about dreams deferred, about the weight of responsibility and the fear of vulnerability. Mia contributed occasional commentary, her youthful perspective cutting through their adult complications with refreshing clarity. When Sophia finally drifted to sleep, Darius and Mia sat in companionable silence, united in their vigilance over the woman who had given so much of herself to others. She'll fight you on accepting help, Mia warned quietly. It's her way of controlling what she can in a world that's taken so much from her. Darius nodded, watching the steady rise and fall of Sophia's chest. I'm prepared for a lifetime of that particular battle. Mia studied him with surprising perception. Good, because that's exactly what it will take, a lifetime. She's worth it, but it won't be easy. The most worthwhile things rarely are, he replied. Outside the hospital windows, another storm was building, lightning occasionally illuminating the darkening sky. But inside, in the quiet space between three people finding their way toward family, a different kind of lightning had already struck. The kind that illuminates paths previously hidden and transforms landscapes forever. Sophia stirred slightly in her sleep, her hand still loosely clasped in Darius's. He adjusted the blanket over her with his free hand. A gesture of care so simple yet profound in its intention. This, he realized, was the architecture that mattered most. Not buildings of steel and glass, but the careful, patient construction of trust between two people who had weathered their own storms and emerged stronger for having found each other in the darkness.